Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Camille Moore with Connect, and I'd like to thank you for tuning into Is Your Head in the Cloud with Michael Owen. Before we get started, we have just a few housekeeping notes on the platform. You can type in your questions for Michael in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen or via the chat box on the right-hand side of your screen. We'd love for this to be an interactive session, so please send in questions throughout the webinar. A recorded version of this session will be available on demand on our website, where you can find additional on-demand webinars for any of you needing last-minute credit hours before CMP testing. Yes, you are able to watch our sessions on demand and still receive credit. For everyone joining us live today, the credit is approved for CPM-IS Domain C Risk Management. We will email your certificate tomorrow evening. For any of you future viewers watching this session on demand and not live, please email me directly at cmore@connectmeetings.com to receive your certificate. I'll share more information about our upcoming webinars at the end of the program, but let's go ahead and get started. I'd like to thank Visit Aurora for sponsoring today's session. Here to say a few words about Visit Aurora's meeting options is Group Sales Manager Kelly Lazante. Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you, Camille, and thank you for inviting Visit Aurora to host today's webinar on cybersecurity, a topic that I know is becoming increasingly relevant in both our daily professional and personal lives. Real quick, Aurora is conveniently located in between Denver International Airport and downtown Denver in the beautiful state of Colorado, for those of you who don't know. We are the local convention visitors bureau here. We represent over 60 hotels with a total of 10,000 guest rooms and 485,000 square feet of meeting and convention space. We are getting ready to open the new Gaylord Rockies here in December, and that will be the largest resort and convention center in Colorado with 1,500 sleeping rooms and 470,000 square feet of meeting space. It also includes 8 restaurants and an indoor-outdoor water park. Oh my. So this year at Visit Aurora here, we are excited to expand our service team, who has created an exceptional menu of services that offer that personalized touch that your meetings and meeting planners are looking for. Along with the sales team here at Visit Aurora, we're showcasing and tailoring site tours around your event needs and offering incentives when the time is right. So keep that in mind. So why should you bring your meeting to Aurora? Aurora offers price points that work for fixed budgets without the stress of coordinating transportation to downtown or to the lovely Rocky Mountains. If you have not had the pleasure yet of meeting Team Visit Aurora at Connect Show earlier this year, then our lovely Victoria Lewis will be attending Connect in December in DC, and she's looking forward to connecting with you all there. In the meantime, I do hope you will feel free to reach out with questions on Aurora, Colorado, your gateway to the Rockies. And I think that wraps it up. I'm going to turn it back to Camille, and I wish everyone a really wonderful, happy Halloween.
Thank you so much, Kelly, and thank you to Visit Aurora for sponsoring today. Before I introduce Michael, you will notice a map on your screen about the rest of the events that we have going on this year. If you have any questions and you would like to attend one, please contact my coworker, Kristen Francis, Senior Director of Sales, at kfrancis@connectmeetings.com. I'm typing in her email address for anyone who would like to reach out to her. Now, without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Michael Owen. With decades of experience as a provider of entertainment and event management services, Michael shares a wealth of knowledge gained through his career in the business events industry. His company, EventGenuity, produces business events throughout North America. Michael is a frequent presenter at industry conferences and learning institutions, speaking on what's now and what's next in meetings and events. He has published articles in Meetings and Conventions, Convene, Meeting Mentor Magazine, Connect Magazine, Planet Tennessee, The Meeting Professional, Meeting Focuses, and Successful Meetings magazines, and as a guest columnist for the Tennessean and Nashville Business Journal. Michael was recently awarded the MPI Rise Award for Meetings Industry Leadership and was recognized for Lifetime Achievement by MPI Tennessee. Michael, welcome. Thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Thanks, Camille. I don't know if I should be honored or insulted that I was invited to present during Halloween week. I will tell you that I am a little scary in that I have 172 slides, but it won't take long, so don't anybody worry. So with that said, we're going to get started. You know, the topic of cyber safety goes along with cyber risk, with risk management, with emergency preparedness. It seems like every session that we have the opportunity to see at conferences such as Connect and webinars and that is solely to tell you that your hair is on fire. And you're going to have some of that here, but I'm hoping that we can tell you how to either prevent it from getting on fire or how to put it out if it does. So let's get started.
I have to know, who is responsible for this?
According to officials, evidence points to hackers working for the Chinese military.
The motive here may be to obtain personal information that can be used for blackmail purposes to turn some of those U.S.
It's my warped sense of humor, so that's okay, guys. So today we're going to try to talk about the targets of attacks, methods that they use, that the bad guys use, attacks before, during, and after meetings and events, and share some approaches to reducing risk. What I discovered, I was asked by the then Convention Industry Council several years ago to begin looking into this with a task force. And what I discovered very quickly was that without an individual knowledge of what cybersecurity means, how to keep yourself safe online, we can't possibly think about how to protect our meetings. So we're going to start with a bit about sort of personal security. I want you to think about how you protect yourself, because understand that in this connected world, any device that's connected to your system as an event owner or a business is a potential doorway to a bad guy. So don't worry, we're going to talk about meetings and events, but let's talk a bit about keeping yourself safe online. What do we do when we leave our homes, when we get away from ours? The first thing that we want to do is get to a conference or wherever we're going and get off of the connection that we're paying for and get on the connection that someone else is paying for. It's just what we do. It doesn't make any difference. Restaurants, Starbucks is the one that comes up most often. So that's kind of how it works. The thing is, how do you stay safe? How do you know that you're in an environment where your data and your private information can't be breached? These are the world's riskiest attractions. Give you a chance to take a look at that. What I mean by that is that when you do a scan, it pulls up all sorts of unidentifiable Wi-Fi hotspots. Have you ever gone to, say, the airport, waiting for your plane, and you go to log on, and it says Boingo, and then it'll say free Wi-Fi, and it'll say International Airport free Wi-Fi? How do you know which one of those is legitimate? You have to think about all of these things. So with the expansion of how we use connectivity and wireless connections is just spectacularly large. I'll give you a couple of examples here of kind of what works. This is the Republican National Convention. This was in 2016. And what happened there is this company, Avast, which was, they're good guys, they're white hat guys. They set up fake Wi-Fi hotspots all the way around the Republican National Convention. And this is the variety of things that they said. I love Trump free internet. I love Hillary free internet. By the way, this is not a political statement. It's tech. Xfinity Wi-Fi. How do you know? Because we know that even our phones are a potential Wi-Fi hotspot, right? If you're connected to the internet, you can set your phone up to connect to your computer. You can name it anything you want. So it's a little bit scary to do that. But the interesting thing is what they saw. 68% of their users had information compromised. Others were playing Pokemon Go. Others were on dating apps. And others were viewing porn sites. Maybe that's why the guy walked into the poll going through the convention center. I'm not exactly sure. But it's scary what can happen when you are connected to a device that has no protection. So we're going to talk about a few ways of being safe on public Wi-Fi. Use encrypted websites. All right. When you go on to a website, if it says HTTP, it's not secure. HTTPS is what you want to look for. Don't do online banking at Starbucks or away from home. Make sure you're on your home network. Use strong passwords. That's kind of a duh. I would add to that, get a password manager. Smartest thing you could ever do in your life is to get a password manager. They generate passwords. They keep passwords, and they're encrypted online, so if they are breached, everybody gets gibberish. They don't get your information. If you have any questions, I'm not going to endorse any particular company, but later on, if you want to ask about a couple of recommendations, I'm happy to give those to you. Make sure your Wi-Fi is disabled. And I don't know how many of you know the abbreviation VPN, a virtual private network. Many of you have it at work. Sometimes they cause connection issues because they have particularly high security. But personal VPNs are very affordable and will give you an extra layer of encryption to make sure that you're not connected. Truth is, the safest way not to get sick is not to shake hands with sick people. And that's what we do. You know, there are things that we would do when we were working with paper. Let's say, for instance, at your registration, if you have your registration out and you have it in a notebook or you're doing it by hand and what have you, you wouldn't leave your registration list just open and laying on the desk. So if you think of the steps that you take in the paper world and apply them to the digital world, you've gone a long way towards protecting yourself. How do you know when these things are real? This is what you look at when you go into the airport or to any hotel or what have you. Which ones of these are real? The slide I showed you earlier about the most dangerous hotspots, if you open your phone there, you'll get 4 or 5, half a dozen free Wi-Fi. That's all they say. Don't log on to those, right? So you be very careful in what I'm often asked, well, what would I go to? If you don't see something branded, if it doesn't say Marriott or doesn't say Boingo at the airport or the official whatever the airport name is, and if you click that link and it doesn't give you a place to go to a password, get out of there quick. So we're going to talk a little bit about phishing. Phishing is something that has affected all of us. I mean, on a daily basis. I got the weirdest one today. My only regret is that I had already turned in the presentation, so I couldn't add this one, but it was barely English. Clearly, they say that they've got all my information and to send them $800 in Bitcoin. Well, one, I don't have $800, and two, I don't know about Bitcoin. But phishing is when people are trying to pull your information out of view. It's very easy to forge email addresses, to put a link that downloads malware, and to confuse you entirely. I don't know about you guys, but every day I'll get something from Wells Fargo telling me how badly I screwed up and that I need to go in and change my password, which is a problem because I don't have an account with Wells Fargo. It's not Wells Fargo doing it. It's a bad guy using them. And then every now and then I will get one from the bank I do use. But the point is, I've said for years, my friend Brant Kruger says this. Brant says, for years I've always said, be careful when you click in emails and now in text, by the way. And what I say now is don't ever click in them. If you get a notice that you think there is something up with somebody you legitimately do business with, whether it's PayPal or the bank, go to the site, log in with your credentials, and you can find out whether or not they're using it. This one's kind of hard to see. Okay, this is what's known as CEO fraud. I went to this is from the MPI WEC, I believe it was 2017. I returned on Wednesday. On Friday, I received this. It's hard to see, but I'll read it to you. It says, we have the full attendee database set up that comprises 3,280 trade show attendees, which was very interesting because MPI that year didn't have but 2,200 at the conference. This is becoming a bigger and bigger deal. We all, if we're in the industry at all, you either have heard of or have been affected by room block poaching. This is poaching of information, or it's making up purely false information. So just be careful is the best word I can give you. It only takes 55 cents to buy a stolen password. We'll talk more about passwords a little bit later. The CEO scam is, I'm going to give you a couple of examples that have happened to me, or not to me, but to folks that I know. A prominent destination management company in Nashville, in fact, the largest. She was telling me, the president was telling me, she said, I got a note from my finance department that the bank draft that had been requested, the bank transfer that had been requested in the amount of $47,000 had been submitted and would go out this afternoon. She said, I immediately hung up my phone and ran down the hallway and said, what are you talking about? What had happened is someone had spoofed her signature. Someone had spoofed their email address, the return email address, had changed one L to an I, had sent it to them, somehow got the name or their accounts receivable, accounts payable, sent it directly to them, got the copy of the president's signature, went right to them. Thankfully, this was done early in the day, and they were able to catch it, or $47,000 would have been gone. Right. The second thing is another friend of mine who was president and CEO of one of the industry organizations had a similar thing happen to her, in that she got a note from an email from her colleague saying, I'll have that full membership list ready to go this afternoon. I'll get it out this afternoon. Problem is she hadn't requested. Same thing. So as long as you have processes in place, it's not like, that we have to put on a helmet and not do anything, but as long as you have processes in place and policies that says, let's do a fail-safe check. If you get a request to send out an amount of money from me, then take a procedure to come back to me and double check and make sure that it's really me asking for it. Same thing with any valuable data. This is a letter. It says, okay, it asks for the payee name and all of that. Looks familiar, looks legitimate, but it's not. And then email spoofing. Imagine what somebody could do if they sent you a list of W-2 things. Again, all of these things are scary. It's like, oh my. But with one step in place, a thought in place, a process in place, a policy, you can avoid that. So phishing across the board, always be skeptical. Use the old-fashioned way. What I mean by that is don't click through. Go online. Check who's ever going to do it. Do the homework. Use two-factor authentication. Let me make a statement here. Convenience is the enemy of security. Those two-factor things are a pain. Are they really? Because we're so connected and we want to go so fast. But still, it's like, all right, okay, now I got to wait for my phone to come through. But they protect you. So you want to put every level of protection that you can in place to make sure that you are safe online. Then you have smishing. Smishing and phishing are similar because smishing is something that comes through via your texts, and that's becoming more and more prevalent. One thing that's really scary that's out there now is ransomware. This is the one that I got today. I actually got it via, they didn't shut down my computer, but I did got the email just this morning that said they had all my private information and they were aware I did this, 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 and this, and that they were going to lock my computer if I didn't immediately send them $800 in Bitcoin. Well, what do? You'll get a signal like this. What would you do if this popped up on your screen? Your computer's been locked by the Department of Justice. Would you pay it? I don't know. Is that a good idea? Your files have been encrypted. What if you saw that? Here's what I would say. That would scare the living poop out of me if I got one of those. But take a breath, stop for a minute, and think. Okay, chances are this is crap, that they are, it's ransomware. This hotel, just last year, over in Austria, one of the top-end, high-end resort hotels, they had ransomware. Their ransomware, as the guests left the room's locked, then the keys wouldn't work. Imagine that. Imagine that you have your conference or your attendees, and you have 200 or 500 or several thousand. They're all fine. They can get out of their rooms, but once they get out of their rooms, their keys don't work. Well, they wound up paying $1,700 or something like that and got it taken care of. But those are the types of things that can drive you crazy. So let's talk about ways to protect yourself. Always update your software and operation systems. I have mine set to do automatically. There is some hesitancy, I know, around generally on telephones, on your new smartphones and that, because sometimes it kind of honks up the system. But if you're the most up-to-date you can be is the best you can be. Install and use security software. Be suspicious of emails, pop-ups, websites. More importantly, backup, backup, backup. Backup used to be a real pain. You had to stop and think about it and run backup and sit and wait for it to stop. Now it's automatic, and most of it's in the cloud. So, mine does, I've got mine set to run daily. You can set it to run every hour. You can set it to run however you want to. You don't even have to think about it, because somebody gets your information in a ransomware attack and says to you, you have to pay money to get this unlocked. Well, you don't, because what you can do is wipe your computer, reinstall the operating system, reinstall your programs, and then download your backup, and you're back in business. So that's the best advice I could give you on that. Don't ever pay the ransom, ever. If you are infected, disconnect from other machines and any external drives. Find out whether the ransomware you have is like a screen lock or a file encryption. There's malware. That you can use and security software to clean the ransomware and recover any hidden files or encrypted files. And as I said, format, clean, reinstall Windows. Look, this is geeky. My 12-year-old internet guy, IT person, just shakes his head at me sometimes. But this is fairly simple. Is it a pain to format, clean, reinstall Windows and restore your backed up data? Yeah, but would you rather do that or pay a criminal to have him come back and do it again? Here's something that I was not aware of that really scared me. You know the public kiosks where you have, where it's convenient for you to charge your phone? You don't even have to have your charger block. You can just plug it right into a USB. We use these things at conferences, right? I was just at IMEX here a couple of weeks ago, and they had charging stations, which is very convenient when you're running down. But let me tell you why. A bad guy can get to these USB ports, and when you plug them in directly, they can pull all of the data off your phone. Think about that for a second. So what do? Again, convenience is the enemy of security. Take out your charger block, use your charger block, and you don't have to worry about it because there's no way that anybody can pull data through a charger block. But because USB not only is a charging connection, it's also a data connection, there is potential for danger. Which brings me to the meeting side of it. If you're going to have a company that comes in and provides charging stations, this is a conversation you should have with them. It's juice jacking. That's what they call it. Don't trust public kiosk with the smartphone. How many of you maybe have been online, gone to Google, let's say, to look for a personal hotel, and then the first 6 or 7 hits look like the legitimate website, but it's not. That happens to us personally. That also happens to us in meetings and events. So how do you know? Make sure that you're on the website. Make sure you're on the hotel official website. So if you're on a spoof site, what can happen, in addition to hacking personal information, they can contribute to room block poaching and consumer fraud. Fake hotel sites, websites, are capturing 15 million bookings at a cost of $1.3 billion per year. Now, this gets into the poaching side of it. So what I'm finding is all this kind of battle of the bad guys that we're dealing with in our industry is all connected. And what we have to do is just be very, very aware of what is going on. If we don't take another look, then we don't know. So we need to make absolutely sure that we know when we go on a website that it's official. So I want to show you this one. This is an official conference website in Vilnius, Lithuania, from a conference that happened in 2016. Okay, lovely, right? This is the spoof site. This is a site that somebody not connected with the association, not connecting with the presenting organization at all, put up, same colors, logos. I would argue that it was a more appealing website than the original one, but it was not at all connected to the meeting. Immediately when the organization found out that this was what was happening, they said, look, we're not connected to that. If you've registered there, go quickly and get your money back. They went to the site, and this is what they saw. They had already taken the money, already shut down the site, and were on robbing somebody else, I would assume. So we want to be very, very careful when we're dealing online with hotels. How do you know if the booking site's legitimate? Be very careful. Now, what happens a lot of times, we talked earlier about the hot spots, but impersonating Wi-Fi network from a fake access point, you can intercept Wi-Fi traffic or very quickly set up a fake web page. I saw there's a fella in Maryland who has done a lot of work in our space around spoofing, and what he does is he comes in the night before if he's going to speak the next morning or do a session the next morning, and by the next morning he has copied and pasted logos and everything else and has put up a website that looks exactly like the hotel website. So, again, this gets into the poaching area, but one way to fight that is to make your registration with your hotel seamless. Part of your registration, then you go directly, you link into your hotel, let everybody know that this is an issue. And it's a whole other topic that I'm happy to get into you with sometime. Don't believe what you see. Look for the fake contact info. That's one of the first things I go for is I look for what does the return link say. And 9 times out of 10, a return email or a return link, you can pick it up from there. Double check the address, the web address. Make sure it's an HTTPS. And if the deal's too good to be true, it probably is. Remember when these things, QR codes, were the end-all, be-all? They're still out there. I just saw one last week at IMEX that one of the vendors was using. Well, here's what occurred to me is, anybody can make one of these. You guys can. As soon as we get off here, you can go right to a site and make your own code. How hard would it be if I were a bad actor to go and see what size that QR code was on that poster, make a sticker, fit it very carefully right over the top of it, and direct you to a place that you didn't want to go? I'm not saying don't use them. I'm saying be very, very careful about this use. So why do people do this? It's personal. What do they want? They want credit cards. They want personal information. They want addresses. They want all of that sort of thing. It's business. They want business intelligence. They're trying to get all sorts of business intelligence. I would say it's war. Okay, regardless, clearly our elections have been hacked. It's not a political statement. It's a fact. So we have that. We have China, who has hacked and gotten special information, business information. So this is why. Now we're going to move on into meetings. Hold on. My computer's gone a little crazy. There we go. What about your meeting? I'm going to ask you a question here next. What do you think information, if you're running a meeting and maybe you're not even taking credit cards, but what information do you have that is valuable to criminals? This is, by the way, from the Events Industry Council. We have coming up very quickly, I'll just take a quick opportunity to let you know, that coming up within the next couple of weeks, we will be releasing a new white paper on cybersecurity that is built on information that was gathered from a survey of the CMP community. It's very helpful in guidance, much more helpful than me sitting here babbling. Happy to share it with you at some point. At the end of the conversation, here we'll have my email address up. It's not ready for release, but today you're going to get a preview. So what's valuable to criminals? Personally identifying viable information. Name, address, Social Security, payment card information, company confidential information, third company data. And here's the thing, because we have, in this industry, we have a variety of people holding our data. What I mean by that is this. So you need to know who's got what. Your app provider, your registration provider. What about your DMC, who's doing airport pickups and may have a manifest, or they may have people traveling? Who has personally identifiable, or not even credit card or company confidential information? What is their policy for using it? Who has the ability to use it? And what do they do with it when they're done with it? Does that make sense? Cool. Any questions, by the way? Any comments? Don't understand my accent? All right. So we did a readiness assessment. Again, I'm a former chair of the Convention Industry Council Apex Standards Committee, which has evolved into the Events Industry Council Industry Insights Committee. So it's the EIC, IIC, EIEIO. That's the way I remember it. But what we do is we look at issues around bigger questions that affect the industry. What is going on? How can we do it? It's an interesting process because you have a variety of voices around the table. What I mean by that is that it's not just hoteliers looking at it. It's hoteliers, it's independent planners, it's corporate planners, it's association planners, it's production companies, so that you get a variety of opinions. So one of the things that we did this spring is that we surveyed the CMP community to see kind of where we are in readiness. 82% thought a data breach could adversely affect their organization, but only 27% have an information security policy that provides for events. That's shocking to me. Part of the reason, I think, is we don't have a clear picture in our business of who's responsible. Those who were affected, now let me say this, given the nature of data breaches, these are only the people who know they were affected. How many of them out there were breached and don't know it? Okay, but this is how that they measured the damage. This is how they were affected mostly: brand reputation, financial damage, etc. But those who were affected and don't know it, how might they have been affected? But what you want to focus your energy on is the data that you hold around credit cards, attendees' personal information, content. What about your individual content? Whether you're a corporate or association and you have sensitive information you're doing in presentation, and everybody in the room has a smartphone and they're taking pictures and sending it out on Facebook or Instagram or what have you. Company information. How confident are you in understanding your role in managing the risk associated with IT? Because a lot of times what I hear is that's a problem for IT. Internet safety and security is a problem for all of us. And the reason why I've spent time earlier getting started on personal security and having to try to get you thinking about personal security, because if you don't have a basic understanding, listen, you don't have to be a geek. You don't have to be way down deep in the weeds of how it works or what have you. You just have to take the extra steps necessary to make sure that you are protected. But it's not an IT problem. It's a me and you problem. It's an app developer problem. It's a DMC problem. So it's across the board that we all need to be thinking about how we handle data. What data do we have? How do we handle it? Hold on a second. Sorry, looks like. Oh, just got a question. Oh, it's going back from the other. Sorry, I just saw this other part. That you use the USBs all the time. I did too. I don't any longer. So just be careful with any of that. So this is what we got back from the CMP community. Only 35% are absolutely confident in understanding their role. I would argue that this is a conversation that, depending on your company, look, you may work alone, you may work you may be a small independent, you could be a large association or a small association, you could be a corporate group. We had a corporate group come to a session at IMEX, and she said, our IT handles our internet security. And see, they do a really good job, and they're thorough in one thing and another. And when we began talking about all the ways, from registration kiosks to spoofed websites and that sort of thing, she said, I don't think they know about that. So what our advice to her was, go back, sit down with, said, these are the things, these are where data gets in. This is what data we hold. This is what we have. This is what we have to take in order to be able to plan and put a meeting. And I would bet you that IT department would shoot off rockets saying, oh, this is great, because here's how we can protect it. If you don't have an IT department, you can still take a look at everything you have. It's very simple. Let's boil it down to the nth degree. It is knowing what data you have, how it's used, who is authorized to use it, what they do when they're done with it, and how you can make sure that anyone who's unauthorized, who are not within those 4 buckets, can get in to get it. So please understand that it's not your responsibility solely, but it is partially your responsibility. Here's what they said. They thought the app provider was most, which I thought was sort of weird. I would probably have gone for the registration company, planning organization. I mean, ultimately, if we have duty of care when it comes to emergency preparedness, I would say we have duty of care and when it comes to cybersecurity as well. So I would think the planning organization. The personal data security device, I'm glad they even brought it up. The venue's network operator, the venue, what can the venue do about cybersecurity? There is this notion of you come in and they've got the big pipe coming into the building and they say, we've got this much going and it's secure this and they're secure that. Good, they're telling you the truth. Then you go to a wireless system. Who's protecting the air? Whose responsibility is it to protect the air in that wireless system? You have to think about those things. What about General Data Protection Regulation? You guys hear that? What GDPR went into effect the 25th of May, and what that means, it's really about personal protection, right? It's about protecting personal information. And what that means is that anyone, even though this is a European Union regulation, is that anyone who holds data or does business in any way with a citizen of the European Union is liability and responsibility under GDPR. I have people say, well, nobody attends. Okay, good. Do you have anybody that takes your magazine? Right? So that is what GDPR is. There's a lot of the bigger companies, I mean, immediately after this went into effect, they began suing people like Google and Facebook and Amazon, the big boys, because that's where the big money is. But this is something that impacts us all. Beyond that, we were asked to talk about, and there's a bullet point here on the California Consumer Privacy Act. I'm going to take that a step further. I don't know if you're aware of this, for those of you in the United States. In 49 of 50 United States, there are data privacy laws. 49 out of 50. The only one that doesn't have them is Alabama. Now, they vary in severity, scope, etc., but they are there, and this is the wave of the future. What I said after spending several months telling people their hair was on fire for GDPR is saying, let's take a step back and think for a moment. Let's think about how we hold data. If I have the best intentions in mind, and I'm a legitimate company and I want to do the right thing, shouldn't I want to know what data I have, where it's held, who's authorized to use it? Shouldn't I want to know all those things? Is it a pain to get that stuff in order because you have bits and pieces on computers everywhere or in the cloud or what have you? But it kind of forces you to organize your digital filing system. And I think that makes a lot of sense. So we won't spend a lot of time. So what do we do? While no system's perfect, you can make it harder to get the data breached. Understand the types of information you hold, as we were just discussing. Ask the right questions of your vendors, of the people that you're working with, and think through. This one might be a great exercise for you guys to do internally. Sit down, okay, when we have a program running, who do we give this data to? Where does the data come from? Where do we hold it? And then who do we give it to in order to get this information out? Employ the right resources, whether they're internal resources to make sure you have any information. Make sure that you're asking your third-party people, and when I mean that, I don't mean hotel sourcing, but any vendors. What is your data policy? How do you handle the data that we're giving you? How do you protect it? Use the right behavior. Part of the reason I put that one in there is because starting all the way back to the beginning, personally, individually, use the right behavior, before, after, during, etc. Put language in your contracts around cybersecurity. Now, I believe don't hold me to this, but I believe that there is some language in the upcoming white paper. If not, we're taking a step in that direction, might be helpful. But just make sure that you address cybersecurity / data protection. So what about presentation management? I can't tell you as a presenter how often I walk in and they say, well, you know, we're going to use the president's computer and it needs to be smooth. Do you have a USB stick? Well, I do, but I don't know what's been on your computer. Or they'll say, here's a USB, would you get, I don't know where that's been. How do you deal with that? I would say collect the presentations in advance. Kudos to Connect, that's what they did. We didn't have to go through one of those last-minute shifts. They reached out ahead of time. I was a little slow in moving, but we got it done. Inform your people of social media policies. What if you have, let's say you're a finance company, and you're doing a presentation, and on your slides are sensitive information. And you've asked everybody not to take photos, but they did anyway. Best thing to do is talk about sensitive information, but don't display it on the screen. Have protocols for how you display sensitive business intelligence so that nobody can take a snap of it and say, hey, I'm having a great time at so-and-so. Here's what I learned about our new project. Registration information. Okay? If you walk up to the stand and the USB ports are live, a bad guy who knew what they were doing could plug into the USB ports and pull all your information off of them. Not a good idea. If it's not absolutely needed to have your registration connected to the internet, don't. Run it at a local level. All of these things are helpful. This is no different than saying, okay, here, come up and sign in this notebook. We're going to keep the notebook closed, but where you sign, you can open up and see who signed before you, etc. Many of these same principles would apply back in the day when we were doing everything with paper. We just have to think in the digital world of taking the same extra steps, care, caution, duty of care, to make sure that we have made the right decisions and that we are taking every step that we can to prepare these. And by the way, these will all be, this is all part of the EIC information that will be coming out here in a couple of weeks. Credit card data, you know your legitimate hotel sites. If you take credit card data, if you accept credit card data, don't hold it any longer than you need to. What's your policy for getting rid of it? I'm still getting requests, could you send me a PDF of your W-9? Or could you send me, no, I can't, I'm not going to do that anymore. I think we feel too safe. I think that working in the digital world is still so relatively new that we have a tendency to sometimes let our guard down. Can't do that, guys. It's all our responsibility to make sure we get those things going. And your personal security, make sure you're updating your software, using security software, be suspicious of backing up your data. RFID, that's radio frequency identification protectors. That's a whole other subject that we could go in, but that can be hacked as well. This is what's coming soon. You know, let me just put a plug here for the Events Council and the work that the Apex Group has done over the last 7 years. There's a ton of great information there in general. This is the cover of the site that will be out here in a couple of weeks. So you can put this tag down. You can also, at the end of the presentation, put my email down, reach out to me with any ongoing questions you might have. If I don't know the answer, I will try to put you in touch with somebody who does. But I'm happy also if you'll just email and just tell me that you want that copy, that when it goes live is to either send you a link or send you a PDF with a file. But there's a tremendous amount of information on there on a variety of issues, from sustainable meetings to room block poaching to Wi-Fi connectivity. And these are all ongoing works to strategic management programs. There are templates, all free. This is there are 33 organizations that are part of the Events Council, including MPI, PCMA, IAEE, you name it. They're all there. So just keep watching there, just in general, and when we get done, we can go. Let's see. So be sure, if you're going to join a Wi-Fi networking in your event space, change the password each day of the, and here's what I say. Here's what I say. You there?
Yep.
Passwords like underwear. Change them regularly. Don't leave them at your desk and don't loan them to anyone. So bottom line in this, just a real quick wrap up here. It's not magic. Before you use the net, take time to understand the risk and how to spot the problems. Take a minute to be certain it's clear. Watch for warning signs. Consider how your actions online could impact your safety or that of your organization. And then connect. Embrace technology. Just take those extra steps. So here are certain, this by the way, since this information is embargoed and I can't get it out to you today, I can't send you the deck, but what I can do is immediately send you the link for these sources where all this information came from. I'm happy to do that, and then I'll have your email and send along as well the other information that comes forward when the white paper becomes available and all of that information. And I would urge you as well, listen, don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't wonder about this stuff. Smartest thing you can do is something that I learned in working on this is to have a trusted advisor, somebody you can reach out to, somebody who is well-versed on technology, who's well-versed on security, and if not, seek out the best information that we have here.
Hey, Michael?
So just closing out, I'm curious that we had a couple of comments, a couple of questions. If there's any more, we've got a couple minutes, I think. Make sure that we've addressed any issues that you may have, or if you have any questions.
Hey, Michael, can you move a little closer to the phone? Oh, maybe you did. Hey, Michael?
Yes. Something's gone weird on our connection here.
See.
Hello?
Hello, Michael?
Yes.
Can you move closer to the phone? We lost you a little.
Yeah, it's gone a little crazy here. Is that better?
Not really. It's hard to hear you.
Yeah, something, we just had a storm come through here, so something hit the connection.
Oh, you have a storm. Okay, I understand. Well, I'll go ahead and wrap it up. Right now, we are experiencing a slight technical difficulty, but I would like to thank everyone for tuning in and listening to this great webinar. Thank you again, Michael, for sharing with us today. After this webinar concludes, you will be directed to a short survey. If you could fill that out, it would be great for us to get some feedback. You can learn about Connect, past and upcoming webinars, and all of our websites listed on your screen now. For everyone joining us live today, the credit is accrued to CPMIS Domain C Risk Management. We will email your certificate tomorrow evening. If you're watching on demand, please email me for your certificate. It will not come to you automatically. If you have any questions, you can email me directly at my email address. I am typing it into the screen right now. And if you would like a handout of the PowerPoint, please email Michael directly at his email address, which I'm typing for you as well. and if you guys had any questions on the EIC information he was discussing.
Camille, I think you just came back. So if you have anybody has any questions for me, I don't know what happened here. It just got. I live in the desert, so sometimes it gets weird.
Okay, well, we're back. If anyone has any questions at all for Michael, we have a few minutes left. I'll give everyone some time if they need to type them out. Okay, if we don't have any questions, we're going to continue to wrap up. Again, thank you for tuning in today, everyone, and we hope you'll join us again November 28th at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for another informative session on hybrid meetings with Connect speaker Mahogany Jones. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.
Thanks, guys.